Hi, I'm Old Norse specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. I teach at the University of Colorado Boulder, previously at UC Berkeley and UCLA, and I'm a translator of Norse myths and sagas. While the sagas that I have personally published translations of, or had published by Hackett Publishing Company rather, are fornaldarsögur, sagas of ancient times, or what we often in English call mythical heroic sagas. Many of the most famous sagas written in Old Norse are what are called Icelandic Sagas, sagas of Icelanders. These include sagas that I've talked about on this channel, like Egil's Saga, Njol's Saga, and Gisli's Saga. And these concern early families in Iceland during the first centuries of the settlement of that country from Norway, beginning in the 870s AD. And one of the comparisons that I'm often making is that this really is kind of like the westerns of Iceland. Right? People are writing these sagas down in the 1200s during a time of a lot of internal tension, a civil war period in Iceland. And they're looking back on a time very early in their history when, men are men, right? When the frontier of Iceland is relatively unsettled, when you settle things with a duel, but men are honorable and all the men are all the women are beautiful, right? It's kind of an idealized past. But one of the most unusual aspects of that, if you're thinking about it from the lens of a Western, is the huge role that the Norwegian kings play in these sagas. Now, one of the big parts of the founding mythos of Iceland is that the early settlers were fleeing the tyranny of the first unifying king of Norway, Harald Fairhair, Haraldur Hårfagri. And so very many of the sagas begin with some kind of conflict with King Haraldur or one of his sons. Laxdæla saga begins that way, Egil's saga begins that way, etc. And that may remind you a little bit of course, the founding mythos of the United States, right? The rejection of the British crown. But what's different is that unlike in, say, an American Western, in American Western you never have Rooster Cogburn sitting down and drinking with the King of England 60 years after he predicted that he was going to have a fantastic career with the U.S. Marshal Service. You never see outlaw Josie Wales come and dance with Queen Victoria at a state dinner in London, something like that. But by contrast, the Icelanders retain a very strong sentimental link to the monarchy of Norway in the Middle Ages. I wouldn't say this is true after the Middle Ages, especially after the incorporation of Iceland into the Danish kingdom. But it's a very curious element that you have to keep in mind, and a lot of that may have to do with the belief that the Norwegian king is invested with a high amount of luck, right? The way luck is talked about in the sagas often makes it sound like it's almost a tangible characteristic of a person, right? You have so much hair, you have so many teeth, and you have so much luck, right? Like each person has a given amount of it. But a king has a particularly huge amount of it. And to be in the king's presence, to be in his favor, and particularly to receive gifts from him, especially if it's clothes or weapons the king himself has worn or used, imbues you with more of that luck. So there may be a little bit more of an old cultural, almost religious sense to the king's status in the world that isn't necessarily related to the political ideology of the Icelanders, but rather to the way that they see human beings as interacting with their world. In which case, you need you need that extra bump in luck from a king if you can get it. You're definitely going to take it. Well, I hope that's been a somewhat interesting or informative look at this question for you. I hope you'll check out some of the sagas of Icelanders that I've talked about on this channel. I did a summary of Njol's Saga, a summary of Egil's Saga, and of the Saga of Gunnlaug Wormtongue, and I still need to complete my summary of the Saga of Gisli Sorsson, but I'll do that fairly soon. For now, from beautiful Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best.
It'd be all the better if you jumped.
Send it! Hi, I'm Old Norse specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. And when I want all the best out of a morning in Crawford country, I reach for a cup of Uncompahgre coffee. All the better from beautiful Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best.